Start with is judging the ball. So you have to know on what balls you can and can't flick. If the ball's coming here short and you have the ball bouncing here, let's say that your opponent serves and he serves somewhere in this corner, the first thing you have to judge is the height of the ball. If the ball is really, really low, let's say here, it's probably not a good idea to flick. It's really tough to lift it up, and if you do manage to lift it up, all you've done is kind of lift the ball for him to kill it. You want to judge the ball based on its relation to the net. If it's at net height or above the net, then it's probably a good idea to flick it, even if there's a lot of spin on it, because the ball's above the net. You do have enough power in your wrist, all of you, to be able to do that. But like I said, if the ball is really low, even if it's no spin, it's not a good idea. All you're going to do is lift it up or just put it in the net. So let's say I got myself here, and it's like that. That's easy. If it's down here, it's not convenient. It's not convenient, not useful. So now the motion of the backhand flip. What you want to do is, and I'll show this to all of you. Normally we hold the rackets like this, right? For the flick, what I'd recommend is holding it a little looser. That way you have more mobility in your wrist. That doesn't mean you have to hold it down here, but just what you have in your hand, just let it go a bit. That way you have a lot more mobility in your wrist, forearm, everything. And what you want to do is, the same way when we play backhand like this, just a regular backhand, it's almost the same thing, except you're really twisting your wrist back. So instead of this, you're going with your wrist back and brushing on top of the ball. It's not a face shot. You want to give as much spin as possible, because the table is really, really short here. If you try and give power, the ball's going to go out, or you're going to put it in the net or something. With spin, you have a lot more control over the ball, and you can direct where you want the ball to go. If you see your opponent's there with spin, you can give the ball there. If you see he's to the forehand, you can give it to his backhand. You just have a lot more control overall. Another thing to watch out, especially for the backhand, is the thumb. The thumb is like your main support. So if you go just with your entire hand and your thumb's down here, you're not going to have a whole lot of feeling. It's going to feel really robotic, and you're not going to know what to do with the ball. But with the thumb, I'm not saying you have to put it up here, but try and put it a bit on the rubber. Feel it so that it's touching the rubber, like the logo or whatever rubber you may be using there. And that way, with that support, you can really go fast with it. You don't have to hesitate. You don't have to worry about anything. Even the spin, even if it's spinny, with that thumb there, you can go fast. It's like a jerking motion, and it makes it much, much easier. Now we're also going to discuss, since it's mostly serve-receive, we're going to discuss about how to actually wait for the serve too. So you can't just be waiting here in the middle, waiting for the ball to come, legs straight, the ball comes, and then you're surprised and you don't know what to do. You have to be ready from the get-go. If you're not ready from the get-go, none of this matters. So what you want to do is you want to align yourself, your left leg, the inner part of your left leg, with the edge of the table here. This is if you're an offensive player. Is anyone here a defensive player, like a chopper? Or, yeah? In your case, you probably want to line up more in the middle, like that. But for everyone else, you want your inner left leg to be aligned with the edge of the table here, and you want your right leg a little back. You want your knees bent to where they reach your toes. You want this upper body where your knees are, so it's just one big line all the way to the ground. That way you're stable. And now you can see the opponent where he's going to go and what he wants to do. And from here, it's easy to move here to go like that. From here, it's easy to step back too if the ball comes long. So that's something to watch out. Because if you can't get ready for that flip, there's no point in me telling you any of this. So ready here, knees to your toes, your chest to your knees, everything's down in one line, and then you just one step forward, and the whole table's yours. So now that we've got that covered, we're going to talk about the different kind of spins that can come to you and what kind of problems they can pose. First thing we'll talk about is no spin. So if your opponent serves something like this, where the ball is just kind of flat, doesn't really do anything. I know it seems easy, but it's not. Especially if the ball comes a little lower, and then that judgment part comes in, like I was talking about. You really have to be low to the ball. You want your head to be as close to the ball as possible so you can judge how much spin and exactly what height it's at, and then you can make your decision with that flip. But if you're not low, even a no-spin serve will cause problems. But other than that, if you do judge correctly and you are set up correctly, it's just an easy motion over the ball. There's no complications. Like I'll talk about with side spin and down spin and even top spin. All you have to do is go over the ball. Now, if someone's serving down spin, just to say something like this, where the ball kind of slows down, it's really low, you can still flip it. Again, you just have to judge the height. But now, instead of going straight on top of the ball, you can't do that anymore. Now you have to kind of take the ball from an angle. You can't go on top, you have to go from the side. So let's say this is the ball, you're trying to go a bit from the right side, or your left side, I guess, but when you're facing the ball, it'll be your right side. And you have to kind of go sideways, and then at the last moment, you have to twist on top of the ball. So it's like that, then like that. It's not that straight motion like we were talking about with no spin. It's a bit of a side motion. And when you do give the ball, there is going to be some side spin. So it's going to look a little more like that. Especially if it's low, that side helps really lift up the ball. You can put the bottom of your racket low like this, and it becomes very, very easy to lift it. So no matter how much spin the opponent gives you, if the ball is above the net and you do this side motion, you'll find it easy to lift the ball. Now let's say someone gives you side spin. This is where me personally, I find the most problems too. If someone serves where the ball curves that way or that way. Now, not only do you have to judge height, spin, but you also have to know where the ball's going to come, because the ball isn't traveling in a straight path anymore. It's going to start curving, and then eventually the path does straighten out to where it goes. So my recommendation for this kind of serve, or that kind of shot, if the opponent can give you that, is wait for the ball to bounce a little. With that much spin, especially with the plastic balls, the ball loses the spin quickly, but initially it has a lot of spin. If you let the ball hit on your side and then just hit it right away, chances are the ball's going to be really spinny. It's going to be tough for you guys to control it. If you let the ball hit, wait an extra half a second, and let the ball drop a little, the timing's going to feel a little weird at first, but the ball's going to have a lot less spin. And with a lot less spin, you can do a lot more. Not only that, when you let the ball bounce a little more with side spin, now you know where the ball's coming. Because initially it's going to have this kind of trajectory, but then it just straightens out and just keeps going straight. So you know that the ball's coming here and you can set up perfectly, as opposed to just rushing and hitting the ball and putting in the net. That's for this kind of spin. For this kind of spin, if you ever notice your opponent serving this, where like I said, it curves towards the forehand side, always try and take your backhand. The spin comes in so conveniently with that side that I was talking about from coming in from an angle, that it works out. You'll feel it, especially when we're practicing later. It works out so nicely. So try and avoid the forehand flip, which we'll talk about after, and try and go for that backhand flip. When they're serving, like this is called the pendulum serve, the reverse, or banana. When they're serving that, try and seek out your backhand as much as possible. It's not always easy, especially if the ball comes somewhere here. And a lot of people say don't use your backhand on the forehand side, but if it's for serve receive with your backhand, it's totally fine. Last thing you have to worry about, at least for the backhand serve as far as receiving the serve, is if someone gives you super, super spinny, something like that, where if you don't adjust properly, the ball's not only going to hit the net, it'll probably hit your side of the table. For something like that, if you do notice that the ball is high enough and you can flip, it's not even going to be enough to go from behind like this from an angle. It's not going to be enough to go on top of it like that. Your racket's actually going to have to open up a little bit like a downspin ball from back here. So in which case, you're going to really have to face the ball like you're hitting it. And then at the last moment, create that kind of arc. It's that arc that's going to help you put the ball on the table. With all these shots, the first two, this one on top for no spin, and then this one for a side spin and light down spin, there's not really an arc, it's more of a straight ball. For this one, you have to create that arc. Without that arc, the ball's going nowhere other than the net. That's more or less it for backhand. Again, it's not a tough shot. It just requires a bit of practice. You have to really work on your wrist. You have to remember to hold the racket a little looser. And with all that, it comes naturally. You'll notice that the more and more you use it, the more and more you're going to like it, because you can really control the opponent a lot better than you can with just pushing the ball back. With this, now I have many options. If I want to flip there and he's caught over here, I can push him back there and then the point's done. As opposed to pushing the ball, chopping the ball, the ball comes to him much slower, then he has time to react, and then I have to worry about him attacking me. Like this, I'm always in control. Now, obviously, you're not going to have that chance every time based on how he serves, how he receives, but it gives you a wider range of tools in the match. Let's talk a bit about forehand flip, too. Forehand's a bit tougher than backhand for the fact that it's not as comfortable to come in and do this as it is to just let it go with your backhand. For your forehand flip, how I talked about, this thumb has to be here, or it helps you be there as support. For your forehand, it's your pointer, your index. This index is going to help you a lot over here. It's what gives the support, and it helps you feel out the ball. I know that sounds vague, but when you start playing, you'll understand what I mean. With your finger just down here, you don't really have much control over the ball, and like I said, everything's going to feel a little robotic. With the finger up here, you can really feel if you brush the ball, if you hit the ball. You have a lot more feeling. Serve, same stance. If the ball comes there, you're still knees down, chest here, and you're waiting. And here it's your right leg that comes in one step and you're here. Now what's different here is that there's not as much brushing as there is with the backhand. It's a lot tougher to actually go like this. It's not practical. You can try, but more likely, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be doing a lift, which is fine. It's not an issue as long as you see where your opponent is and you judge correctly, because you don't want to give it to him comfortably. But the shot can still be really effective if you go here, you see where your opponent is, and then you give it there, or you can trick him like that. That's what this forehand shot gives you. So what you have to notice now is, for the backhand, we're going on top of the ball and to the side of the ball. For the forehand, we're just kind of going under. We're going under, and then at the last moment, we're giving just a bit aside and straight. So it's like, and that's it. That's really all it is. Now, once you get better, you can start adding curve, or you can start tricking people, but that's all the shot is. You're going under the ball. You're lifting it a bit so that you know it's not going to enter the net. And then at the last moment, you curve it and go straight. So there's a few reasons why each part's important. This part's important because you don't want the ball going in the net, obviously. You create that arc that I was telling you about, so you ensure that it goes on their side of the table. And then when you reach the point where you feel that that arc's enough, you close the racket. And that gives you control to where you want to put the ball. Because if you just leave your racket open the entire time, you might be able to put the ball on the table every time, but you won't know where the ball is going. It's going to be a guessing game. I may give it to their backhand. I may give it to their forehand. If you close the racket every time at the end, now you know wherever your racket is pointing, that's where the ball's going, and that's done. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, we'll go over the serves. For forehand, this serve is much more comfortable to receive. So let's say someone serves this, where the spin curves towards the backhand. Try and take your forehand flip as much as possible. Because the ball curves like this in this instance, and for you to just come to the side is much easier than you trying to go like this with your backhand. And I'll tell you I'll explain more what I mean when you guys actually get to doing it, and you'll feel what I mean. So when the ball curves like this, right foot in, it's spinning this way, it's spinning this way, it's spinning towards my backhand. Same thing, I don't hit it right away. I let it bounce. Now I know where the ball is going, and I'm ready. Downspin, heavy downspin is much tougher to receive with forehand than backhand because, like I said, with forehand, we're not brushing the ball as much. It's more of a lift and then closing the racket. With backhand, we had the opportunity to either brush on top or go to the side, or even when we're lifting it up like that, it's still a brush. With forehand, since the space is so enclosed here, it's not here like with our forehand spin where you have so much room. It's much tighter, and so we don't have much room. We have to lift it a little more. So for heavy downspin, all you have to do is really adjust the angle. Let's say the ball comes no spin, all you're going to do is, and then you're going to go like that. With heavy downspin, you're going to really open your racket a lot. Now, you have to judge how much that is, all depending on how fast you see they go with their hand, or how much the ball slows down, how spinny the ball is. It might be like that. You might have to go all the way under the ball. And then at the last moment, just close it. It's all really a matter of what you notice the opponent's doing. There's also the topspin serve, which is quite interesting, and if someone does it, it works out really well in your favor if you know how to receive it correctly. If someone does this, where it's a okay serve somewhere in the middle, but you see that there's no downspin or side spin, it's just a topspin. It's not no spin either, so you have to watch out for that. No spin can get you. But this, all you have to do is put your racket up and just drive the ball forward. In this case, there's no opening the racket first and then closing it. It's just closed all the way, and it's like a mini topspin on top of the table. With that, if someone does that to you, you can take your forehand anywhere from here to halfway to your backhand. And then you really have a good control of the game. You can choose to go there, you can choose to go there, and they're at a disadvantage because they decided to give you a ball with topspin already, and all you had to do is control his energy. You didn't have to put any of your own. You just use his energy, and it works out much better in your favor. Now, deciding when to use backhand and forehand, because the ball is going to come anywhere in the game. The opponent's not going to tell you where they're serving. My thing is I always like to take my backhand much more than my forehand. Even if the spin is a little awkward sometimes, I like to take my backhand from anywhere here all the way until almost halfway to the forehand side. And that's for the simple reason as if you notice that we're waiting here for a serve, it's much easier to come in like this, do my shot, and jump back, and then I'm ready for the game. For my forehand, if I come here with my forehand and I jump back, it's fine. I have no issues. Issue becomes if I try and go here with my forehand. Then I have to think about what am I going to do. Am I going to move with my right leg here and then do my forehand flip? Because this isn't correct leg movement. I get stuck here and then I can't get back and I lose the point. If I decide to use my left leg to go there, same thing. Now I'm in a bit better position, but it's so hard to jump back if the ball comes over here. So that's why I just say try and use your backhand as much as you can here, because it's much easier to just come here, you hit the shot, and you move back, instead of having to worry about forehand here, forehand there. Not that you can't do it, and there will be times where it'll come for you, and you will do that forehand, and you'll be ready, and it's fine. But more times than not, you're going to find yourself stuck here, and then you're going to be wondering what to do. That's the first thing you have to. That's just my suggestion. Technically speaking, by the rules, this is backhand, this is forehand. That's what you want to do. But just a little tip from my experiences: try and use that backhand more. Secondly, you have to watch out for the length of the ball. I know people think you can only flip if the ball comes here short. That's not true. Even if the second bounce is somewhere at the end, or even if the ball comes out, sometimes the ball is slow enough where you still have time to react and you don't have to wait for the ball to actually exit the table. Because if you find yourself in a position where the ball is half long and you don't know if it's short or long, and then you try attacking with your topspin, you end up hitting your racket there or something, you want to avoid that. Best way to avoid that is taking the ball a little earlier, not too early, because then whatever the spin they give you is going to confuse you. But wait for it just a little extra, and that way you know if the ball's coming here or here, and you can make your decision. So let's say the ball comes here and I want to do flip. It's going to be the same thing. I'm waiting here. Only difference is I'm not going to be moving in as much. That's the beauty about this position. It's all my right leg. If I want to move here, it's my right leg. If I want to move there, it's my right leg, and I can control how much I want to move forward or backwards. I'm like this. The ball comes here. Now I'm ready. I can play my shot. The ball comes all the way over there. Ready, I can play my shot. So anywhere where the ball isn't coming long, fast, or long downspin, long side spin, something like that, you can use your flip. Now, let's say the ball comes something in between where it just bounces and it ends up somewhere here. It's not fast or slow, then you should go for your attack with your forehand or backhand. But if the ball comes and then it ends up somewhere here, go for the flip. You'll find it much easier. It might feel a little awkward at first because you're not letting the ball bounce out all the way, but still, you'll find it a lot worse if you find yourself somewhere here trying to lift up the ball, giving to the opponent like that, and you'll be left wondering what to do. The other thing you have to watch out is where your opponent's serving from. If he's serving from here, it's easy for him to do anything to the backhand side. If he's serving more from here, then know that it's probably easier for him to go to your forehand and adjust accordingly. If you see that your opponent moves all the way here for his serve, that doesn't mean you have to stay here for the receive. That means you can move a little more towards the middle. You have a more open view because he moved over there. If you see your opponent really likes to serve from all the way here, you can move here. The chances of him going down the line are almost none. If it happens once, you'll move and you'll be ready. But chances are, 8 times out of 10, he's going to be serving somewhere in this area. Most people do. And that's why most people set up for their serve over here. Next thing you have to worry about is what you're going to do after your initial shot. If you're waiting over here, you flip and you come back, but you're not ready, and you give it to him, say, dead center in the forehand, and he's just ready to rip it every time. There's no point in doing the flip. Then you might as well push long to the backhand and hope he misses. It's a strategic shot that puts you in a position to win the point. It's not supposed to win the point initially. You're not supposed to hit the ball hard. You're not supposed to try and kill it from the start. You want to brush it or lift it nicely to a place where he's not, or a place such as his stomach, where he has to move to just put the ball back on the table. And that way he's out of position, and then you're in an advantage. So if you're waiting here, here's some locations that you just can't go wrong with no matter who you're playing. If you give it wide corners, and by wide I mean it has to go past here. Same thing with the forehand. Or, and this is, you have to judge where the person is, in his right hip, that always jams people. If you give it wide corners, they don't know what to do. You can give it to the other corner and they're done. Or you can jam them to their hip, and you'll notice so many people, especially at a bit lower of a level where their footwork still isn't as developed, doing this, or just trying to find a way to compensate for the fact that they didn't move. So that's something to watch out for. Now again, there's other things you can do. You can play it short, long, but I'm just talking about position-wise across the table. Those 2 corners in the middle of their right hip of their body, you can't go wrong with. So once you've done your shot, he's putting the ball back on the table, then you know what to do next. And you know what to do next by the fact that you're still in position. So you hit your shot, you jump back, and now you're ready. I'm saying that like the class is on the flip, but the flip is only so useful if you're ready for it if you're ready for the next shot. So you hit your shot, you jump back, and now you're ready. You're ready the same way, knees in front of your toes, chest in front of your knees, and you have the whole table to you. You know what to do. You're okay if the ball comes over here. You're not worrying if the ball comes over there. You're always ready. And that's only going to come by that position that I'm talking to you about, which my dad used to call the table tennis position. Like that. And with your head lifted up and constantly looking at the opponent. You don't want to be looking at the opponent per se, his body. You just want to see where his racket is. And you want to see what the racket's doing. If you see that his body is going like this, but his racket's going in that direction, none of this is important to you. The only thing is what this does at the last second. Because the opponent can always change too. He might go like this and then change at the last second. Now you have to play a pretty high level player to see that happen, but still, I'm sure you guys will come across it. So just look at the last second, the contact with the ball. Which leads me to my next thing, which is actually looking at the opponent's racket while they're serving. What you really want to watch out for is where the ball hits on their racket. Now it's a really fine detail, and it's really tough to master it, but if you can, you won't have any problems with serve receive. So if we can think of the racket as divided into 4 quadrants, if it hits in this lower quadrant right here, chances are there's going to be a lot of spin on the ball. It's low here, there's the most time for it to go. It has all this route to travel on the racket. There's going to be a bunch of spin. If the ball hits up here or up here, know that it's probably no spin. Even if they go super hard, even if they go super fast, doesn't matter. If it hits the bottom of the racket here, near where your hand is, where the logos are, chances are there's no spin on the ball. Even if he tried to, next to nothing. And just note, if he touches it here, even if he didn't do a whole lot, there was so much time for the ball to travel onto the racket. If he so much as just does this, there's going to be more spin than you think there is. And you have to judge for that. Because it's important to watch that, not only where the ball is going to come, because you can judge that by looking at the racket too, if the ball is going to come there, there, or there. But you're going to see how much spins on the ball and what kind of spins on the ball. If you notice the racket's going up like this, I think it's pretty obvious that it's going to be a topspin serve. If you see the racket go down, pretty obvious it's downspin, side, side. But now here's the thing. There's people that can mix it up. There's people that can do this and do something at the end. And that throws off a lot of players. And when I was a little younger, it really threw me off too. What you have to watch out for, like I said, is only what the racket does at the last moment. Now, provided he's not covering the serve with his body, which is illegal. If he's serving legally, you will see that last moment where the ball makes contact with the racket. And that's all you care about. You don't care about if he throws it up this high, if he does something strange with his body. None of that matters. It's just that very last moment, that contact. A serve like this and a serve like this are both the same thing. It's just that extra that I added onto the first one. The actual contact and the spin and the way the ball comes and where it comes is all the same. So now that we've got that covered, which is looking at where the ball hits, what the opponent does, not worrying about all that extra stuff, you got your next, it's not a problem, but you got your next step, which is how to approach the ball. I know I talked about going in with your right leg and all that, but it's kind of the mentality of how to go about the ball. You have to really be focused with that mentality. Nothing's going to come across you. Nothing's passing you. Your legs have to be tense, and at that last moment, it's not so much of a move. It's also a bit of a jump to where you want to move. Now, some of you will do that better than others. It's not important, but it's the idea of you're ready and nothing's coming past you, and at that moment, you're there for it. And you want to get there as quick as possible as soon as you see where the ball's going. It doesn't matter if you have to wait for the ball there. You want to get there as soon as possible, because then you have as much time as you want to adjust, look at the ball, and react. Let's say you know that the serve's coming slow, and you say, oh, well, the serve's coming slow, I'll come there just on time so I can hit the ball. And then you let the ball bounce, let it go, and then you decide to move. You're still going to be there technically on time, but you've given yourself no time to look at what he's done, think about what you're going to do, where you're going to place the ball. So instead, you see the ball come. The moment he hits it, you have an idea where the ball's coming. You move there as fast as you can, and you're ready. And then all depending on side spin, down spin, no spin, top spin, you can do what you want. So that's kind of the way of thinking you have to go about it. Another thing to watch out for, which people can really mess with you sometimes, is that half-long serve. Well, that's a bad example, my bad. Something where, and I spoke about this probably 10 minutes ago, where you don't know if the ball's coming here, 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 here. It's kind of leaving you to guessing. And I already talked about the motion you have to go about it. It's really the same thing. But I'm also going to talk about what you can do if you want to do the flip. Like I said, I know it's a course on flip, but this is just as important. If you're here and you're waiting, and the ball comes somewhere here, and you don't think you're going to be able to manage the flip, all you have to do is get even lower than you already were, and then your eyes are at the ball. And then even if you want to do a mini topspin, which isn't favorable in this situation, you can. But if you want to do that, then you have to stay really low. With the flip, you can go a bit higher and you'll still be fine. With this mini topspin, backhand or forehand, whatever it may be, you have to stay super low. And I know a lot of people, myself included, have issues constantly staying low. So that's why I just recommend going for the flip. Forehand flip, backhand flip, serve, receive. Same thing with the forehand, by the way. If the ball comes somewhere here, you don't want to, and actually no, this is different. If the ball comes out here for your forehand, so let's say someone serves from this side and they serve this, sorry, and the ball comes like that out, and it doesn't bounce twice, it only bounces once, you think it might be better to actually wait for the ball to drop and then loop it? Not true, because you've given the opponent a lot of time to react. Even though you think you're in the advantage because you're attacking, you've given the opponent so much time to react based on how you're hitting the ball. you're not in a good position. It's much better to let the ball bounce here, and then the ball's high, right here where you want it. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. So you have to watch out for that. With the backhand, it's not the same though. With the backhand, you might want to let it drop a little more. If it comes out here, you have to move here, especially if it's this kind of spin, where it curves that way, because the curve is going to feel awkward at first. You let it drop a little. Now you can go about it from the side. And not from this side, but actually from this side. And that's only if the ball comes from here on out. If the ball stays within the table, then you just go from here if you can, where you go on top of it, all depending on the spin. But if the ball comes all the way out here, if you go from the side like this, the ball's just going to go into the barrier. You go from the side here, and that ball's going to come awkward to the opponent. He's not going to know what to do. Especially if you really manage to get that wrist in. He's really not going to have, the only thing you can really do is block it or make a slight counter, and you're ready. There's a few other shots we can talk about which are related to the flip too. It's not just this, but once you've mastered all that, you have the regular flip, the one from the side, this one, the one on heavy topspin. You can actually control that your hand and do a few things. You can come in like you're going to do the flip on the heavy topspin. At the last moment, just push the ball like that. If it's no spin here and kind of a bit higher, if the ball's like that, you can think, oh, the opponent thinks you're doing a super heavy flip. He must think he already won the point. At the last moment, all you do is just go forward with your hand at the angle that you deem correct. And you can really control your opponent like that, and you can really throw him off, because now he has to keep guessing all the time. Is the other guy going to flip? Is he going to push the ball? Is he going to put it that way? Is he going to put it that way? That's the whole thing behind this. You're constantly keeping the opponent guessing. If you keep doing the flip in one spot, even if I do this, it doesn't mean anything, because he knows where the ball's coming, and he can just put his hand there and redirect your energy, and then you're in a bad position. The whole point behind this is that you see where the opponent is, and you play it to your advantage. Not by going hard or by going spinny or anything, but through that placement. Placement's the main thing here. If there's one thing that you can get out of all of this, it's placement. It doesn't matter how good your flip is, or how much spin you put, or how hard you can hit the ball. If you can place it in the right direction where your opponent isn't, you've done much more than anyone that's hit the ball hard or given a lot of spin. That's something to watch out for. Same thing with forehand. Once you start to actually get the hang of it, and you know that you can go under, you can go on top like that, you can play with it a little. At the last moment, you can switch like that. You can give a bit of side spin to the ball. So now your opponent thinks it's a flip and there's topspin. Not exactly. It's more of a pushed side spin shot. And if he tries to go on top of the ball as if it's a topspin ball, all he's going to do is put it in the net. Because what you've done is you've went on top of it a bit to the side, and the ball's come pushed with a bit of downspin and side spin. But the ball has to be right for that. If the ball is super high, no spin, there's no reason to. Just do your regular flip, don't take any chances. If the ball's a bit lower and has a bit of downspin, like what most people are going to serve you, the most regular serve, then you can think about doing that. Because not only can you do this spin, then you can do that spin. And that's a whole, those are two other shots that you add to your toolbox of receives. So now your opponent, again, has to worry, is he going to do this? Is he going to do this? Is he going to go this side? Is he going to go that side? So that's something to keep in mind. Other than that, I mean, I've covered most things. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate.
Very, very helpful, by the way, Philip.
Thank you.
Comprehensive. So if somebody serves and it's got heavy side and under, and it goes wide on the forehand.
Wide on the forehand here?
Yeah. So what side of the ball should
Side of the ball? So if we're coming here super heavy, actually super heavy, I didn't cover that. That's actually a really good question. Super heavy, you're going to let it want to drop a little more. When I was talking about the side here, when it goes out and you go on top of the ball, that's more for a light downspin or a no spin ball. For that, you're going to let it drop a little. And where you want to hit it is on the right side of the ball, so here, and maybe even a little under. And you want to try and keep it as low as possible. It's not ideal, but if the opponent's given so much downspin and side spin, you're not going to have the choice. So you're going to have to wait for the ball a little and lift it up just so it can go over the net. That arc again that I was talking about, you can get that by going from the right side under the ball. And then when you feel comfortable and you think that you've lifted the ball enough, then like with any other shot, you close it at the end so that you can control where the ball goes if you want to give it to the forehand or the backhand. And yet,
so you mostly mentioned it as a service return.
Yes.
Apart from service return, or any other times when it would be appropriate?
The other
you might
times,
choose that over maybe a low backhand smash?
Apart from serve receive, the other times that would be appropriate is, say, if you're serving and he receives it short, or they receive it short. If they receive it short somewhere, and by short I don't mean necessarily here, I just mean as long as it's not coming out super fast and super long. And they're usually going to do that through just a short push. And in which case, that ball is always going to come like the serve that I was talking about, where it's slight downspin, where you can go to the side like this. It's not no spin, so you can't necessarily go on top of the ball. And it's not heavy enough where you have to lift it up all the way. But it has just enough spin where it'd be convenient to go from the side. So now you have to watch out with their receive, because there's plenty of things that they can do too. You can't just count on the guy pushing short. You have to watch out. He might push long. They might flip. You have to really watch out. But you have to analyze your opponent. If you see it's an opponent that really likes to flip a lot, you might want to serve a little more heavy so that he can't flip. And then he has to push short, and then you can flip. If you notice that it's an opponent that always likes to push short, then it's easy. You serve short, and you know where the ball's coming, and you just do that with that side spin.
Wouldn't a fast serve be harder for a lot of flippers because
Yes, it would. There shouldn't really be such thing as a flipper, because when you're waiting for your serve receive, you're ready for everything. I know it seems that way, that most people do that a lot, but I'm just talking about that right now because that's the topic of the class. But in general, for serve receive, you're ready here and you're ready for anything. Now, fast serves are always not easy for anyone, me too, because they're designed to throw you off guard, because most people serve short or half long, and they're not fast balls, and then that fast ball comes all of a sudden, you're like, oh. So you're over here. If you keep this distance, by the way, which I forgot to mention, it's about just under a meter from the table, and you keep that position where your knees are to your toes, your chest is to your knees, you'll be ready for any serve, as long as you're looking at the opponent. But if you're waiting in some other way, let's say your right leg's forward, I don't know, or you're just straight up like this, then that long serve is going to surprise you. But if you're in that position and you're watching the opponent's racket carefully, it shouldn't surprise you. Any other questions?
Is it different if you hold the paddle with the Penhold or with the C-Miller?
Yes, it is actually. If it's Penhold, then which one are you more in? C-Miller? With C-Miller, I'm trying to think of the C-Millers I've played. I don't know if they flip. I'm not sure they flip. I think C-Millers, they like to, do you have anti-spin on one side? No? Oh. In which case you can go like, you can kind of play around with that. You have to judge the ball. For forehand, I don't think it's an issue. Just continue what you're doing. Forehand applies the same. Do you change up your grip, or are you constantly like that? Constantly? Right, left. For your forehand, you can still lift it up like that, but there is a bit of limitations with the C-Miller grip, obviously. But you can still apply the same motion. The approach to all the serve receives are the exact same, whether you're a Penhold, C-Miller, shake hand, doesn't matter. For your backhand though, your backhand flip's kind of limited. So what I would recommend is, just as I was talking about at the end, if you have all those backhand shots and you want to trick your opponent by pushing like that, I would say for you that you can really push a lot more. So you can go, and you can play around with your opponents like that. with this kind of spin, all you have to do is see where they are. That's the main thing. Like I said, it's the placement. But it's kind of a side spin shot like that. If the ball's spinnier, then you'll open up your racket a little more. It all depends. But that's the thing that I'd recommend in place of the flip. Any other questions? Go.
One other question, and that is, somebody hits with heavy topspin, the loop, something like Victor hits on his backhand. Do you like to take that shortly after contact, or would you let it off a little sometimes?
Let's say they're from behind the table and they're looping with heavy topspin. You really have two ways of going about it. You can choose to hit it earlier, or you can wait really, really late. Now what I do is I always choose to hit it earlier, because when you hit the ball earlier, it kind of gives me a rhythm and I can put my whole body into it every time. Not only that, the ball hasn't reached its peak spin yet. So while the ball is a lot spinnier here, I do have time to go on top of it with my body. It hasn't reached peak spin yet, and I can still stay close to the table and play my game. The other option is you wait for the ball to come all the way back here, where it's lost all its spin, but then you're back here and you're kind of lobbing the ball back every time. So my suggestion is to stay a bit closer. The one thing you don't want to do is wait for the ball to reach the top of its bounce. That's where it's the most spinny, where your hand's going to end up being here, and it's just all around an uncomfortable shot. So if you're going to take it early, take it early. If you're going to take it late, that's also fine, but then know that you're lobbing the ball and you're in a much more defensive position than you would be. Anyone else? Don't be...
You talked earlier about getting the feel. When you said when you're going to go at the table, you get the feel of what I'm talking about. Is there an exercise or something that they can get started with to actually get the feel of what you're talking about?
Yes, there is. And it's a two-person exercise. And it's really, really easy. If you have a table at home with anyone, doesn't matter if you come here. It's just one person serving, and they do different kinds. And you're practicing your serve at the same time too. One person serves no spin to the forehand, and you just go there, and you do that every time. This is just a matter of repetition. Once you got that down enough times, it's going to be easy for you to go there. It's going to be easy for you to go to your backhand, their backhand. But it's a matter of repetition. So it's a serve-receive exercise. One person serving no spin, the other person is practicing their flip on the no spin. They change to down spin, then he changes his flip to the down spin flip. Same thing with backhand. The one thing I'll say about that though, and you have to really watch out because you can get into a lot of bad habits, is when you're receiving and you go, when you're doing the exercise, you don't just flip and then stay there. Flip and then stay there. You have to flip and come back into position right after, even if no ball's coming back after. I know it seems a little silly, but if you get into the habit of just flipping and standing up and not worrying about the next ball, what's going to happen in the game too? You're going to do your flip, you're going to stand up, and you're going to be wondering why the ball's coming across you. So you do your flip, and you jump back. That's the one thing you have to worry about in that exercise. Other than that, it's very basic. One person serving to your backhand, the other person's flipping. One person serving to your forehand, the other person's flipping. And then you guys change up after, say, 20 balls, 30 balls. The other person's serving, then you're flipping. It's not the most interesting of exercises, but believe me, you'll notice a big difference in your game, because this is where it all starts off. If you don't have this, then you can't really go forward. People always say serve and receive are like the two fundamentals of the game, and it's true, because that's where the whole point begins.
And is there a follow-up for the other player once the player does the flip?
Yeah, the other player
originally served. Is there a follow-up, or it's
the other player can play the shot like they would. Now it's up to you whether you want to continue playing the point or not. If you don't want to, if you just want to practice those two things, then one person can serve, the other person can flip, the other person gets back here, and the other person just finishes the shot. If you do want to continue, then it's more of a game point scenario kind of practice, where one person's serving, you're flipping, you're getting back, and then you play out the point. If you don't want to do that yet, or you don't think the exercise is going to go well, your level isn't high enough, you're not comfortable with it, whatever it may be, then just start off with that serve and receive, Once you feel comfortable with that, serve, receive, and that other person can play the ball. And then when you feel comfortable with all of that, you can put it together and you have that game point scenario exercise where it's, for all intents and purposes, a game, but only one person's flipping the entire time, and then you play out the point.
Maybe one last thing before we go to the tables. For the forehand and the backhand, can you go back to where you actually get the power from? I saw that it wasn't from the body like a forehand.
No. Oh, where you get the
power comes from? Where exactly?
That's for short here. You do need a bit of power, but it's not anything like from back here where you need to put your whole body into the shot, where your legs have to go down and then up, and you have to twist your torso. There's none of that. The table's so short here, in general, that if you put too much power into the ball, you're not going to have control. The ball's just going to go out. But for that little power that you do need, that comes from these two fingers, which is why I put so much emphasis on them. With that backhand, that support there really gives you so much chances and so much opportunities to go fast with it. If you put your hand down here, that's why I said it was going to be robotic. You can still go fast with it, not that you can't, but it becomes much tougher. And there's no chance you'll ever be able to generate as much spin and power as someone who puts their finger there does. Forehand, same thing, it's this. What one of my former coaches used to say is, those two fingers come together and they kind of pinch the racket, and that's where that main power comes from. When you're pinching the racket, you'll find that you'll be able to jerk a lot faster. So yeah, I'd say it's those two fingers that generate the power. It's not the body, it's not the legs. Because your legs are bent down here, your body's sprawled all over the table. There's no place for you to go. If the ball's coming here short, you're not going to be able to go back here and do something. Everything's here in front of you. So it's those two fingers.
All right, is there any more questions from the audience? If not, thank you so much, Filip, for coming today.
Thank you.